most of us, spending time with those we love is a precious gift, but today's lifestyles often reduce quality time. In Dallas, one father has found a unique solution. Meet the McNabbs in today's Family Affair.
The real advantage, I think, of knowing somebody that's in the sports business is that you know when to go to practices. You're there way ahead of everybody else. You're after there. It's a totally different atmosphere.
Guys are so much bigger than I was. I was just a little kid, and it was always fun to see them. You know, they look like superheroes or something.
We run into Jason Witten at a game at Texas Stadium, and he was nice enough. Deion Sanders has been on the sideline, and you know, he'll let Max come up and chat with him for a minute.
I've met Reggie Bush, Darren McFadden, and Felix Jones. I've met Chase Daniel.
I covered a lot of South Lake Carroll games, so when Chase came back with Missouri and played in the Cotton Bowl, Max got to have him sign his bio out of his media sheet. So there's a lot of stuff like that they get to do. Well, the first story I ever did on Max, he actually was a sixth grader over here at Nathan Adams Elementary School, and he competed in one of those spring softball toss things.
Our head coach, Coach Izar, was asking at the beginning of the year whenever we're going to go on a high school game time. And I asked my dad, and he said, whenever we go 4-0.
I usually cover multiple teams, so it's actually kind of fun to watch one team play week to week, see the ups and downs.
It's cool to have my dad be there watching me. Sometimes I'll look up in the press box and I'll see him up there, you know, writing or typing, doing something like that. And it's cool to know that we usually have a spot in the newspaper.
With him being a linebacker, he's really not in the statistics, although I do tease him that he should be glad I don't keep a stats for missed tackles.
Having my dad write the newspaper and do that stuff, I thought it'd be pretty cool to get my name in the newspaper, but I totally understand.
For the most part, I'm just a parent in the stands helping build the batting cage or run the concession stand.
And now time for our recruiting update, and with that we welcome in David McNabb, VYPE recruiting expert, author of the weekly McNabb Report, and proud father of Max McNabb and two other sons as well.
Yeah, and someone who knows way too much about high school football in North Texas over the years.
Yeah, and but how special is that to be able to work your schedule now around to where you're able to watch your son play every Friday night?
Yeah, I string the games for the Dallas Morning News, and they've been great because they're pretty basic stories that you're able to go and keep the stats, and I'm able to watch Max and WT White play.
So there's not a lot of commentary in your game reports.
Not much commentary, and like I said, he
got to see this linebacker.
Yeah, he had an interception that didn't get mentioned in a story, but it shouldn't have been mentioned, but I had to explain to him why.
Okay, let's get into the recruiting update for this week. In what a football weekend this is. Starting today, of course, we've got 5 college football games in town. Of course, Texas Tech playing Baylor over at the Cotton Bowl. SMU's playing at home. TCU's playing at home. North Texas is playing at home. And at Cowboy Stadium, Texas A&M against Arkansas, which is a big recruiting weekend for both those schools too, right?
Yeah, they're playing in Cowboy Stadium to get the attention, to have the same effect that Texas-Oklahoma has had for years. And in the recruiting world, the way that works at a neutral site is they basically alternate who's home team. Like Oklahoma was considered the home team last week, so they got to invite guests who could come to the game. This year it's A&M, and there's some very interesting subplots as to who's A&M is inviting to the game and who may come and how that may impact big time, which is what a big purpose of why both Arkansas and A&M are playing in the game.
Some little known stuff about who may be lurking on that sideline, who may be very important to the future of your program if you're an Aggie, for instance. All right, let's take a look at a couple of commitments for Texas A&M locally. Arlington Martin's Devontae Burns and Denton Geyer's Josh Stewart. And just as far as those are big recruits for A&M.
Yeah, and they have already committed for the class of for 11. They'll sign in 11, and they should be on the sideline. I mean, it's not a formal, count as an NCAA visit, but they can come and get some tickets, and it's all part of it. One of the real interesting things is the big running back for 2012 will probably be Jonathan Gray.
Right.
And where he goes, and A&M, I consider him a real dark horse for A&M. Jonathan, a lot of people know he's James Gray's son. He went to Texas, who was a big running back at Texas Tech. Is Texas Tech enough of a running back school for a guy like Jonathan who wants 25 carries a game? Jonathan really likes Texas. He's already made a visit down there, and that was a big deal.
They've got a commitment from Malcolm Brown.
Yeah, now they have Malcolm Brown. Yeah. And so now there's this Alito connection of there's a player on Texas A&M who's a walk-on, Blaine Cheatham, who's your classic 12th man story. Well, he played at Alito. His younger sister is a cheerleader at Alito. His dad coaches the 7-on-7 team at Alito. Well, guess who's probably going to be on the A&M list to get in to go to this A&M game is Jonathan Gray. So all those little subplots lead into where Jonathan Gray may eventually end up.
Now, of course, Jonathan Gray, a junior at Alito, which is ranked right up there at the top in the state in Class 4A. Let's take a look at a couple of other guys. How about DeSoto's Curtis Reiser, a big offensive lineman who's rising up the rankings? Yeah,
Curtis is another of the DeSoto kids. He's a junior. He's a mammoth lineman that as soon as you go to the field, you go, wow, that's a big guy. And he's a guy that's going to get offers from Texas, Oklahoma, A&M. As soon as they're able to offer him, they're going to give him an offer.
We got a couple of LD Bell guys, too. Of course, Chris Barnett, who transferred in, the former A. Maceo Smith tight end, played for his dad there, and Kenny Farrell, running backs at Bell, too.
Yeah, and they're the type of players that Arkansas is interested in. And even though Arkansas is the visiting team and they can't, kind of have them as guests, it still is a huge impact that players from this area can see that there's 70,000 people at this Arkansas game at Cowboy Stadium. So that's still a real positive for Arkansas. In fact, Bobby Petrino, the first thing he said this week was, well, we have 26 kids on our roster from Texas, and it's going to be so they're all very well aware of how important all this stuff is.
All right, David McNabb, our recruiting expert, we appreciate it. We'll talk to you again next week here on VYPE TV. All right, who are the current leaders in North Texas football? When we return, it's time for a Landry Award update. VYPE TV continues in 2 minutes. It's time now for this week's Landry Award Watch, presented by GMC. Here are this season's notable performances, and we start with Paul Millard, the fine quarterback from Flower Mound, who led the Jaguars to a big 52-49 win a week ago over crosstown rival Flower Mound Marcus at Ford Stadium on the SMU campus. He has 23 touchdown passes this season. How about DeSoto's Ryan Polite? These numbers include his 333-yard performance against North Mesquite on Thursday night, now with 19 touchdown passes on the season. Devontae Lacey, the wide receiver from Grand Prairie, leading the area with 49 receptions. And Jamal Turner, the quarterback for Arlington Sam Houston, headed to the University of Nebraska, where he'll be a teammate of another fine running quarterback, Taylor Martinez. Turner leading the 5A area rushers with over 1,000 yards rushing through half this season. Thanks for joining us this morning. We'll be back next week at 10:30 a.m. to bring you the best stories in North Texas high school sports. Before we go, we wanted to show you a performance from the Denton High School drum line. Have a great day.